Hi, good afternoon, listeners. My name is Yeboaa, host of Literary Voices. We're coming to you this afternoon from DORC Studios upon 37 Racine, and I have in the studios with me a very charming, very outspoken humanitarian, philanthropist, and all the words and accolades you could use to describe him. His name is Chakabars. Welcome.
Respect. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, as most of you are aware, Literary Voices is about telling the African Canadian or the Black diasporan story. And Chakabars is one of such living example. He is a son of the soil who is really doing a lot of things on the continent, and not only in the doing, but also transforming the narrative of what we do know about Africa. Chakabars, first question.
Just Shaka.
Chaka. I was going to ask, first question, the name. Where that?
Shaka Zulu.
As in Shaka Zulu. Hey, we are in trouble. Okay. First one, we are in trouble. So you picked up the name for yourself and...
No, my mother.
Your mother?
Yeah. That's my birth name. That's not our internet name.
Oh.
Yeah.
That one I didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, he chose a good name befitting you because I think you embody the spirit of Shaka Zulu. Okay, now I really have a better understanding of the man sitting right in front of me. Okay, so I know you get quite asked a bit of this story about your beginning, your background.
Mm-hmm.
Born in England?
No, I was born in Barbados.
You were born in Barbados, immigrated to
The UK.
Mm-hmm. And now you're a man for all of us.
Yeah, the UK, a lot of the Caribbean people who go to the UK go there because they have the idea that they're going to be able to make money there. But if you look at what the UK is now, the growth rate is a very, 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 very small percentage compared to in comparison the growth rate of Ethiopia or Ghana.
As in terms of economics.
Economic growth rate. So also in those countries, African people, black people, Caribbean people, we are the bottom of the pile. So we had many discriminatory policies put up against us. For instance, the color bar that was in the 60s. We also had many discriminative practices, not only in the workplace, but also to get loans, to be able to get houses, etc. So a lot of us had the idea that we would go to England and we would be able to make money because we were told the streets were paved with gold. But then we got there and we were enslaved. So
that was us trying to go for greener pastures, but it wasn't so green, so
nothing
to speak.
Grows
there. It wasn't so green, so to speak. But as you say this, there are quite a few economic, how do you call it? I call them economic refugees.
Yes, many.
Yes. And I am one such product.
Yeah.
Yes, of an economic refugee to, how do you call it, Canada. So, this narrative as it is right now, I think the next question I'm going to ask you is, what makes you significant in our present age?
That I'm resourceful. Because there's many people who are of the diaspora and have all of these ideas of returning to Africa, and people who've never been to Africa returning to Africa and repatriating for the first time. But they're not as resourceful as they could be because they almost still see themselves as Westerners, and they aren't thinking in a way to use the tools that some children that I've met in Congo or Uganda or Somalia would love to be able to have. You know, there's people in Nigeria right now, little girls who were able to make electricity out of cow urine, right?
Yes.
That's pretty resourceful,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So how is it that there's so many of us in North America, in the Caribbean, in USA, Colombia, etc., that have smartphones, internet, all of the resources that we could ever possibly want access to, and yet we're not able to be as resourceful as people who have way less than us? So I figure that actually the problem for us is not necessarily just one of economic policy and, as I was saying before, discriminatory practices, but a lot of people don't have the same get up and go because they don't want to go. Africa for them is a spiritual home in this faraway place.
Yes.
And now, you know, we were just speaking in the car on the way here that the movie Black Panther came out, which has sort of shifted consciousness, but also it took a European film production company to shift African consciousness when the information has been out there for a long time and people have been traveling for a long time. So it's still this idea, it's a psychological problem that we still have to seek validation through European thinking, Eurocentric views, and also financial successes in European countries in order for us to be African, which doesn't make sense.
So we've not redefined ourselves and decolonized our mindset as yet. It's funny you talk about Black Panther, and I've been looking a bit into Afrofuturism as Black Panther maybe highlighted or made it more aware, but those are kind of the stories that even on the continent, those on the continent are writing about a future of Africa beyond the now. And those of us here in the diaspora are still bottlenecked, or it's like there are skills on our eyes that we've not let go of yet, so we're not seeing beyond that that narrative. Yes, so in sum, your ability to be resourceful makes you significant in our present age. That being said, people can follow you on Instagram. Yeah.
They can follow. I would rather they follow. I have a foundation. It's a charity called I Heart Africa, and that is something that they should follow because that's where the projects are. So that tells the story of the project. I try to tell the story of the project, but sometimes you might be going on my Instagram and I might just be talking foolishness because I'm a human being as well, right?
Well, some of your talk is quite spicy. Not that I don't enjoy it. I enjoy it. It entertains me and whatnot.
But the only reason I do that is because people aren't there yet. They don't want to just come and study. They don't want an encyclopedia of information. They want edutainment. They want some entertainment. Otherwise, they're not going to tap in. So if you understand psychology, you have to be able to meet people where their vibration is and raise it. If you try and just vibrate above them, a lot of them won't ever get there. So, and also I have mentors as well who have educated me in a way to be resourceful and use the tools that I have understanding psychology to be able to get people to that space. But yeah, I would say my resourcefulness is the most significant thing.
Because I was looking at I was following whatever you were posting on your trip to Congo, where you were staying and everything, and I took a step back and I said, wow, where you were living, most of us who think we've been abroad, when we're going back home, we want the fanciful 5-star, 10-star, 11-star hotels to live in. And
I've actually been to Congo with some people. I'm not going to name their names, but when they'll have to stay where I stay because we're using the charity to pay for the accommodation. But I will make sure that the accommodation is a very low price because we were trying to help the children. But they will make sure that they're dressed a certain way to show people that they've made it. They're not from there, even though they're from there. And that is the type of psychological issues that many of us have in terms of classism and perpetuating classism and really trying to give the idea that there's a really good book by Frantz Fanon called Black Skin, White Mask, which really details that. But it's true. It's like a psychological paradigm that we need to break. We need to actually go with some humility, because there's so many people who are trying to be as African as possible in the West, and then when they get to Africa, they try and be as European as possible. And then there's people who are in the West saying that they're African, but they're living like Europeans. Their car's European, their phone's European, the meals that they eat are European, the schools and colleges that they go to, the education that they have is European. They validate themselves with European materialism. Their bank is European. There's nothing African about them apart from their designation by genetic disposition. That's it. So it's very difficult for me to understand that psychologically. If you are that, then you don't have to pretend. So you show me how you are by your lifestyle.
I don't think they even recognize all this, enormity of what is going on with them. They just saying, however, they've not reflected that deep.
But they'll study the psychology of what's going on in the Kardashian house. It's not like they don't understand. They just don't want to understand.
No. But you see, understanding and self-reflection are two different things. If you're a self-reflective individual, just like yourself, you dig deep within yourself. Those people can project what they see, but have not dug deep into themselves. You dig deep, you see all the stuff you don't want to see, and you need to work on it, right? Okay. My next question to you will be, what is your hope for the next generation of black children?
I don't really have a hope. I'm raising them. So I have 2 orphanages in the Congo. We're building a Pan-African technology school in Akosombo in Ghana.
Hold on, pause. Akosombo International.
Yeah.
That's where he went to school. And I'm from the Akosombo district.
Yeah.
Oh, so you, hold on, this whole conversation turned. You went to my hometown. Nanakwafu Akuto.
Don't put me on the spot like that.
No. You all drove past the Adome Bridge.
Yeah.
And went to my hometown.
Yeah.
Akwemufie.
No, I don't speak Tree that well.
No, Akwemufie is the...
That's what it's
the
called?
name, yes.
I thought it was Akosombo. The town is Akosombo.
So Akosombo is before you hit the bridge. When you turn left, you go to Akosombo.
Right.
When you pass the bridge, immediate left, you go to the village, which is Akwemufie, where Michael J. White was crowned and whatnot.
I haven't been there.
Oh, you haven't been there yet?
I've only been, so if you go if the bridge is on your right and you go up the hill into Akosombo, you go past the gas station, and you take the left past the gas station. Don't go straight, because that goes up to the Akosombo Dam.
Yes.
You go the left and then go straight up, and then our school is on that road, on that long road. Okay. It's the primary school there is called the Wood World Missions School.
Missions. Okay.
But the school that we're building is going to be is yet to be named, but is going to be an international Pan-African technology school, high school.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So that is a Soja Mine district.
Yeah.
And that has a whole history that I'm not going to go into the history of the place. Yes. Okay, beautiful. So you know my hometown. Well, so you get to Atimpoku, and then you get all these hawkers coming around with different...
Yeah, I only eat fruit. I only eat fruit.
They bring everything. You only eat fruit.
Yeah, I don't really...
So how did you survive in Ghana?
Well, I go to a brie and get lots of fruit and eat. We dey chop.
You dey chop?
Fruit.
Hey, man say you dey chop. Oh, see me. I need to change my diet too.
I mean, you need to change it to a liberty, because a diet is part of death.
Now that one for educate me on. My next question would be food, health, and living. So as we are talking about food, health, and living, educate us.
Well, just to end, the children of the future, I'm making sure that I'm involved in their raising, rather than complaining at governments and saying, God help them, let's pray for them. I am going to educate them. I'm going to provide them with opportunities and facilities, and so that they can be the future leaders of Africa, rather than hope that it changes. Because you don't hope for your own child you raise in your house.
Yes.
So you have to see all children as your own child.
Yes.
Then the world is your house and you're fine. So this is the village.
Action, not words.
Right.
And we say it takes a village to raise a child. So that needs to be not only said, but put into action. And I do hope that anybody who is watching this conversation with you, who has any inclination of, participating in building an orphanage or want to invest, however, skills, financially, whatnot, can do so, or can contact you, or can also set on that path that they want to set on. The bottom line is the success of these children, black children anywhere and everywhere in the world, is our collective success.
The future of all black people is tied up with the success of Africa.
Yes. So it's not going to be only your story, your singular story, but it's going to be our collective story of success.
The school, I'm bringing everybody to the school. So it's a pilot project of mine and Fuse ODGs. But I have brought to the school Steph London. She is going to provide money for the school, as is Burna Boy, as is a brother called Luo Deng, already put 50,000 into building the foundations of the school. Anybody who, last time I was in Accra, I was with Stoneboy. Anybody who wants to build, they're welcome, because the thing is, what happens because of this worship of celebrity, we a lot of the time get tied up to thinking that one person is supposed to do everything. Yes. But that isn't the idea of the village. That is the idea of feudalism, and I don't necessarily believe in the idea of the king. I believe in the idea of the people. Yes. And so if you have some people who have some money, but you say to them, this is part of a bigger project, then you don't have to ask them for all the money. You just say, I just want 10% or something very small. And then when they hear other people involved, then they want to get involved, rather than this idea that a celebrity should fix everything. They should give back, but also the people need to do for themselves as well. Exactly. Because why is most of the money of the people being spent on materialism, capitalism, etc., etc.? Because that's what it is, especially the diaspora. Like, yes, we send money home. So my heritage is Jamaican, Barbadian, Trinidadian, St. Vincent. We are sending money in Jamaica. We're sending $2 billion home each year through Western Union and other money transfer companies. But how much of that money do you think is involved in foreign direct investment in the development of Jamaica? Nearly none of it. None. Right? It's the same thing that's happening in Ghana. There's lots of people who are going to Ghana and going to Accra right now to just go to party. Yes. And that's not good enough, because at the end of the day, what happens when you get there and you're partying? Well, the electricity, there's a strain on it. The water, there's a strain on it. So you can have your parties. And then when you've had your parties, you go back to the West and you say, yeah, Ghana's a beautiful place, but we can't just turn these places into tourist destinations. And then what? There's people that live there. Like, we see every single time we're in the car going through Accra, we see the children in the street who are spending all day selling chewing gums or spending all day selling bread.
That's true.
It's like, what are we doing for these children? Yes. We can't just accept that there's a social underclass and do nothing about it. Yes. Because I was once in that social underclass.
It's rather sad you mention all these vivid things, and there are so many things that can be done for these children. It doesn't have to be a great investment. The little investment into children, even if one can, say, I have $10, $20, give it to this local charity taking care of children, or
No,
You know,
I think it's deeper than that. I think what we need to do is take all of this surplus money that we're spending on, for instance, holidays that we don't necessarily need, materialism that we don't necessarily need, and we need to start setting up businesses in Africa. If we believe in Africa, that's what we need to do, because we can employ these children and we can give them a future and we can give them equity in the businesses, and we can make sure that they're safe and they're okay. There's 60,000 in Ghana, in Accra. But in every single city in Africa, that's the case. And that is a legacy that has been left by colonialism, capitalism, classism, and elitism. But if we, rather than just having some idea that empathy is going to save these children, what we have to have the idea is that foreign direct investment, setting up our businesses and actually seeing value there, is the most progressive way to do something and create a change.
As for the business, it is easier said than done. That's an entirely different that's an entirely different topic that we hope that in the near future, as more of us are going and inputting or giving the best of us to the continent and trying to change the mindset. And you did mention one word which is very key in my books: mentorship. As more of us, and yourself going there, being a mentor to the youth and being a parent and rearing them, they take, they learn all these valuable skills that are lacking to build a successful future. So that, when you go say you're doing a business and you hear for a month or two, the business is still standing when you go back.
Yeah, but the thing is, we have family there. We have people there that we can trust. If the Chinese can do it, why can't we do it? Because China are developing China off the back of setting up businesses in Africa. So if the Chinese have more hope to go and set up businesses in Ghana than we do in Ghana, then what does that say about us?
A lot of changing of mindset. There is this South African gentleman, Vusi Tembo, or I might pronounce his name wrongly. And a question he asked is, Africa has a plan. No, Russia has a plan for Africa. China has a plan for Africa. What plan has Africa have for Africa?
Well, I think that we need to look at the history of Africa, and Africa was never homogeneous. I think that now there is, and has been since the Berlin Conference of 1884, 1885, there has been a need to create systems that are protective and defensive of Africans' resources, and also of Africans, if you want to go back to the 16th and the 17th century, African spirituality, because one of the major problems that I face, I was raised Rasta. I'm not Rasta anymore because I read the Old Testament Bible, I read the New Testament Bible, and I really started to understand that actually there's a lot of patriarchy in there, and we tell his story, but we never tell her story. Which is a problem, because without her story and his story within the same capacity, there's no balance. Because we used to have mother, father, child. This was the Holy Trinity. Now we have father, son, ghost. So where's the woman? They made the woman a ghost. But they didn't even make the woman a ghost, because the ghost isn't even a woman. The Holy Spirit is not a woman, right? So we need to protect Africans from attack of resources, but we also need to protect Africans from attack of our indigenous spiritual systems, because now we are being celebrated for destroying our own spirituality and our indigenous wisdom. That is black magic. We need to stop this black magic. This is all I hear, right?
Or witchcraft.
Right, but what is black magic? We have to look at that, because if people are scared of us being magic, right?
That means there must be something powerful in there.
There must be
to
something
destroy
very
it.
powerful.
Yes.
That's why we got the Bible, and they outlawed the drum. Because the drum taps into our black magic.
Yes.
Whenever you start playing a drum in a room full of Africans,
The drum
you
speaks.
see what happens. But now we have this synthesized drum that's owned by the European Jewish music industry that gets played in the club, and it's got us all enchanted to basically worship our own destruction. So if we stay there, we'll always be there, enchanted, dancing, entertained, because all entertainment is entering someone into a containment field. So we're keeping our people in the same place, and we need to move.
I'm going to tell you this little story that I found quite interesting. It was told to me by one of Ghana's poet, Kofi. The name just skipped me. Anyways, so I was lamenting about African spirituality and how as soon as I landed at Kotoka, right on the way to wherever I was going, it was festival of this, celebration of this, Holy Ghost, this, that. Only that I saw. Mm-hmm. So I was lamenting, why can't we get our minds off this Christianity hold and think about things really that need to be done? Mm-hmm. Because in my books, the doors to success is always open. Mm-hmm. It is up to you and I to walk through it. Mm-hmm. And if you go biblical sense, it says ask, mm-hmm. and it shall be given, seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall be open. Mm-hmm. It is already there. Mm-hmm. So what is this head into Christianity, spirituality, so much that it's like ostriches with the heads, in the mm-hmm. sand, when the bottom is the English was not coming. My mother tongue is coming. Leave me alone. So you understand what I mean? Yes. And so when I told him that, he started, when an elder sits and starts laughing like this big laugh, mm-hmm. he told me, as Africans, we think we are running from, our traditional religion, but we cannot run from it. Mm-hmm. The story he told me was about a church in his village that they used to drum. Mm-hmm. So every time that they drum, one person gets into this spirituality and whatnot. So they said it was the Holy Spirit, getting into the person. Mm. So they saw that it continued for quite a while. And then one old man told them, "You people are church. I thought you were Christians. That is Tigari's drumming that you guys are drumming." So Tigari is one of the traditional worship whatnot. So every time that drumming goes on in the church, Tigari comes to church. Yeah. So they thought they were running away from Tigari, but
Tigari is always present.
Is always present. And he told me, even with African American spiritualities and everything, it's just a transplantation of one and putting the other.
Yeah, so, but the only problem is that Africans don't own the church. The Vatican owns the church.
Well,
if Africans owned the church, then it would be different. But we don't own the church because we still send our money, our church money, to white people banks.
Oh, well, yeah, that one. Unless you are Muzama Christo Disco Church. That is purely African.
Yeah, but there's not that many of them.
My grandmother's church.
In Congo, they have the Kimbanguists. Mm-hmm. I think his name was Joseph Kimbangu, who was a radical black Christian, mm-hmm. who brought the drum into the church when they weren't drumming in church. Yes. But I think one of the major problems that we still face is that we keep putting a validation that is not of our own on something so that we can justify it. And this is what going back to what I was saying about killing our indigenous wisdom and being celebrated for killing our indigenous wisdom, because it was the same elders that took us to church. Yes. It was the same elders that agreed to sell our people. It was the same, because this is the other thing, and this is the story that a lot of people don't really want to discuss, especially if you were beneficial of transatlantic slavery, because these are the uncomfortable conversations that a lot of people don't want to have. But the reasons why Jamaicans like me and Barbadians like me exist is because Ghanaian elites were selling us out. There were Akan, there were Asante, there were Fanti, they were Ewe. They were selling us out. They would go to war with each other. They would take us through Salaga. They would take us down to the Cape Coast, and then they would stick us on ships, and then we would end up in the Caribbean in slavery. right?
Unfortunately, I totally agree with you.
And that for me is one of, I read a book called A History of Indigenous Slavery in Ghana by Akosua Purby, and this book really detailed how actually the churches at the time, when the Asante elite was saying we want to keep slavery because it was profitable, the churches became a refuge for some of the Africans who were enslaved, and that's why they stayed in the church, because Christianity for them was actual savior from slavery. So this is the flip side, and the difficult conversation that people don't want to have is that actually the church was a safe haven at a point. It's not now though.
Yeah.
It's not anymore. We don't have slavery in Ghana now, but we still do have all of these preachers in Congo. We have these mega churches. We still have the
mental slavery.
We have the mental slavery. We don't see any preachers that are broke.
No.
The preachers have money.
Yeah.
Right?
They're the millionaires.
Right, exactly. But then they're driving past kids in the street that don't have anything. And I don't believe that if you are a man of God or you are a woman of God, that you should say that you are a man and a woman of God, holier than mighty. You worship the prophet Jesus or the prophet Muhammad, and yet you're a millionaire driving past homeless street kids every day. That's hypocrisy. I'm not into it.
The whole concept has, changed, or it's become...
It's become capitalism.
Yes.
Spirituality has become capitalism.
It's what you sell. They're selling hope.
Right.
To hopeless people.
Right.
And they are also taking the clothes off their backs to sell and give to them. So the church members are poor, very, very poor.
And mean well. They mean well. They're not evil people.
Exactly. And they've put these pastors on a pedestal that to even touch the pastor is...
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Spiritual enlightenment because you touch the man.
If you... One question I asked somebody who was trying to transform me or change me or whatnot. Listen, I was born Catholic. I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic schools. I received my first communion, confirmation, yada, 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 in any sense. So my simple question to the person was that I'm African. My forebearers before Christianity, if you're telling me that there is salvation and if I don't do this, when I die, I may go to hell. So my forebearers with before...
They must have all gone to hell, right?
Amen. I rest my case. So if they are gone there, when I die, I'll go meet them there. Simple. It is simple. Let me go meet them there. If our spirituality was so negative, it has made me who I am today. Whether I like it or not, I was born black. I will die black. Simple. So those that went before me, if they did not go to church,
just make sure you don't live white.
But with the African and spirituality, when you drink water, before you drink water, you pour libation.
Right.
And that libation, who is it to? To the ancestors. And when you die, we'll become ancestors.
Right.
The key thing is what kind of ancestors do we want to become?
We are the ancestors now. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Is what we are living. There's a lot of people who have an idea of if they lived in this time, they would be revolutionary. But if you're not revolutionary now, then you would have never been revolutionary whenever you would have lived. You are doing exactly now as you would have done 1,000 years ago.
Yes. You are very right on that. So we come to food, health, and living. I know you are into martial arts and kickboxing and boxing thing. Let me tell you a story. I don't know who is doing the interview, whether I'm telling you stories or... You see, that is the problem when you are with a storyteller. Every time we have a story to tell. So 2 weeks ago, look at the whole me. I said I was going to do mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu. Okay? 2 days later, I still couldn't get out of bed. Hey, that thing, it killed me. So first of all, congratulations on all those boxing that you do to raise funds. Because if I had not walked through it, the workout... Okay. Food, health, and living.
Okay, so food, keep it African. Health, you need it, and live your life.
Please quote that. Put that in quotation marks.
But in order to know that, you need to understand what African food is. And what is being eaten right now in Africa. I've been to 14 different African countries, and the food that I see that's eaten in the city is predominantly not African. It's predominantly European. Import food. And that's right. The same in Jamaica, and that's the same in Colombia, and that's the same in the USA, and that's the same. So when I'm in Ghana and I'm looking at the dishes, and they're having this discussion, whose jollof is best, Nigerian jollof,
Niger jollof or Ghana jollof?
Ghana jollof. And I look at the whole thing and I think, actually, just because you know an African language doesn't mean you know African history, and you definitely don't know African food history, because jollof actually means Senegal, and it first came from Senegal, the language Wolof, and that was in fact in 1201 that stopped a famine in Senegal was African wild rice. Now the rice that we're eating and calling African rice is Chinese import rice.
It's Chinese import.
And import rice from India. Or even if it's grown in Ghana, it's still that rice that's not African rice. It's not the genius.
It's not their
family.
It's not their hardy rice.
And so the one of the dishes that we're arguing over as African isn't African by the origin of its ingredients. The tomato comes from Mexico. The onion comes from India. And then we're eating some kind of meat. We throw some kind of meats or whatever in there. And this is not the traditional foods of the rural people. Because the rural people understood that actually the best way that they can live and survive is from plants, not from killing animals. Yes, traditionally there would be the sacrifice of an animal, etc. But that was really tied up in elitism. It was really tied up in if you have enough money and if you have enough wealth, power, you can kill an animal. You can't kill an animal if you're the poor person who's making the country rich. And so the majority of the diet of Africans across tropical regions and subtropical regions is actually plant-based.
That's right.
But what plants are we consuming? Because I'm in Congo and everybody there says that the most Congolese food is manioc or cassava. It comes from Brazil. And it came from Brazil 350 years ago, and it actually helped the Portuguese to continue to enslave Congolese because cassava is a root that doesn't rot. When you have it under the ground after it's got to its full size, it can just stay there. The animals don't eat it. Now, if the animals don't eat it, why am I going to eat it?
It has arsenic.
Arsenic in it. It destroys your liver. Over time, it makes you look pregnant.
Around the 80s, during the Ghana famine of 83, certain strands of cassava killed quite a lot of people in Ghana because of the arsenic. So the trick is you put the cassava in water overnight.
I mean, the trick is we grow yam like we used to everywhere instead of cassava. That's the trick. We go back to our indigenous foods. Because if we are eating our indigenous foods, then we will be able to be as great as our ancestors.
Unfortunately for us, we have abandoned a lot of our traditional foods in the forest. And so, because we've done that, we have high incidences of cancers, different cancers, high blood pressure, and it's like the black man has become synonymous with high blood pressure. So you get black men dying at very young ages, 28, with massive high blood pressures because of what? We are suyarizing ourselves. We are eating a lot of meat, a lot of salt, lack of exercises, and
too much sex.
Well, they've given them the Mandingo complex, so they think.
But that's the thing, is that's abandoning our own sex and fertility rituals. If we believe that we have to have sex so that we can make or breed babies for slavery, then that's the way that we're going to have sex. But it doesn't make any sense because you can't raise those children. If you have all these children, you can't raise them. It doesn't make sense. And then the other thing that doesn't make sense is that actually too much ejaculation destroys a man's prostate. Once his prostate becomes hardened, he goes through the andropause. He releases hormones in his body that tells him to die. He has erectile dysfunction. Then his heart and everything else will start to fail. We need to understand that as West African people, we actually have more salt in our bodies than any other people on earth, naturally, because there wasn't that much salt in West Africa. That's why salt was such a prized thing that was being used as where the term salary comes from, because people used to be paid in salt, right? But if we are now eating a diet full of salt that is being moderated by Europeans or moderated by Africans that don't know any better, then we're going to have high blood pressure, because we believe that our diet has always been salt filled, and it hasn't. We didn't use to eat salt.
It hasn't. It hasn't. Unfortunately, the kind of salt that was used was actually a plant that had a flavor. So that's the plant you put in the food to salt it up. In any case, our last question, so I can let you go, you have another engagement, is, are you a businessman by choice or by default? With the fruits.
Now is by choice. I didn't want to be a businessman because I was raised to believe that money was a dissension from spirituality. If I only pursued money, then I would never pursue spirit and my purpose on the earth. If my life got tied up in capitalistic and Eurocentric ideas of I need to amass lots and lots of wealth, or African ideas, I need to amass lots of wealth, then I wouldn't be able to reach spiritual enlightenment. So the only reason I have been involved now in fruit and in a business is because I know that economic progression is not only in our future, but it's essential for our future. So if we don't control the black economy, then we will be controlled blacks. We will be continue to be on the plantation. We'll never get off it, because if all the land on earth is for sale and we don't have no money, then that means we don't own any land. And everybody wants to act as if the separation of land and people has no correlation with the lack of wealth that we now have. But the land is the wealth.
Land is wealth.
Right? So without that land, and without us being able to get the minerals from the land, grow food and plants on the land, like my fruit company, fruit grows on trees for free. Right? But we need to eat, right?
Yes.
Now, how is it that the biggest fruit companies on earth are not African, when most of the fruit in the world is able to grow in Africa?
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily come from there, because a lot of people in Africa still live in subsistence living, but there's a lot of fruit that comes from Africa through the whole monocropping thing, and then that gets sent around the world. So then in a shop in London, in one of the supermarkets, we have beans from Kenya, and we have oranges from South Africa, and we have tomatoes from Nigeria and Ghana. It's like, why is it that in these supermarkets, and it says it on the label, like they're proud, because Europeans own a lot of the land in Africa, and still our crops, we are growing those to export them. Look at the cocoa production in Ghana. The cocoa production in Ghana and the cocoa production in Côte d'Ivoire, $100 billion a year chocolate industry, and Ghana gets 2% of that. And Côte d'Ivoire.
And look at how these children, the cocoa farmers' children, are so,
The cocoa farmers' children should be the richest children on earth.
Exactly.
Right, and so, but that has to do with us not really taking charge of our own economies, because we expect somebody else to do it for us, or we pray that the change will come. We don't become the change.
Praying that change will come. On this note, thank you very much, and which means the change, it will never come if you do not take action. And number one, change your mindset. Number two, if you have an idea, if you have a passion and you really want to do it, you gotta take that step to do it. It is possible. Chaka Shaka has done it. Shaka Zulu, he has done it. He continues to do it. And so just take a formula out of his playbook. That's what I call it. And you'll also be doing it one step at a time. A tortoise, no matter how slow it goes, reaches is still going, gets to his destination. Thank you for honoring my invite to, Literary Voices. And thank you to the GAC NCTO, Kofi Yeboaa, for bringing you to this program. And I know you're going to your York University program. I wish you the best in life, love, business, and every other thing. And one day we will meet in Ghana at the school. Akosombo. Here we come. Papa Jules, AIM Network, thank you very much. Thank you to my executive producer, Chief Yinka Farinde. Africa in me. Africa is in the house. Thank you.